Okay, council members, I'm going to call us to order for our Tuesday, June 23rd work session. We're just a minute or two late from getting started. But our first presentation tonight is going to be our annual presentation on our victim advocate services. And so we're going to turn the time over so that we can learn about what we're doing in this important area. And I'm sure our city attorney will be chiming in too.
Thank you.
So, Julianne, we'll turn the time over to you.
Thank you so much. So my name is Julianne Peterson. I'm the new victim advocate for you guys here at Bountiful City. I started at the end of March. Part of my role here is to present to you guys as part of the VOCA grant. So I just work part-time and it's a contract position with that grant. So this is part of that requirement, and hopefully it informs you guys as well as just kind of what the services are provided to the victims here and gives you a better idea of how that functions. So the role of a victim advocate is to help victims of crime understand their rights as well as their options and how to access services while keeping them informed and supported throughout the criminal justice process. So this is my official job description here. I'm not gonna bore you guys with the whole details, but if you ever want to access that, you're welcome to. But on the next slide, I'll go over kind of more what I focus on. So there's a variety of things that a victim advocate can do. Crisis intervention, rights and case information, accompaniment, referrals and coordination, compensation assistance, and documentation and follow-up. I do all of those, but I mostly do number 2 and number 6, which is rights and case information, which is an explanation of victim rights, notifications, hearings, and contacts. So I wait for a court notification, and I have my own Excel spreadsheet that I've made since I started here. It's got about 100 cases on it, and it's a work in progress. You guys will see some of the more numbers on it on the next few slides, but that just is my go-to document, and that tells me who I've contacted and what they need to know next and what type of services they need. And then number 6 is documentation and follow-up. So you'll see on the next couple of slides the system VS tracking, that's victim services tracking, and that's what the grant refers to for numbers. They like to see all the numbers, and it's mostly for the purposes of the types of crimes that are being committed and also the services provided. So it has a whole bunch of stuff on there, but I just put those 2 sections on for you guys for the purposes of this presentation. So I'll go over that a little bit here. So this one is the types of crimes. Almost all of them are domestic violence. Few assaults, few sexual assaults, a few protective order violations, stalking, harassment, custodial interference, stuff like that. But almost an overwhelmingly amount of the cases are domestic violence. And I would say that those victims do need a lot of support. I've had a lot of people give me feedback saying, thank you so much. I had no idea that this is even what was going to happen, or I thought this case just got forgotten about or whatever. So from what I understand, there used to be a survey that was required with this grant. There's not one anymore, but I have had quite a few people just tell me over the phone, thank you so much for informing me or for being there with me in court or whatever. So that's good to hear. It is kind of a stressful time to have to face their offenders in court and things like that. So, and then on the next slide, kind of more of what I was just talking about, the information and referral process, giving them a phone call, telling them this is what the case is looking like. You know, if you want to meet ahead, you're welcome to. This is what's going to be presented by the prosecutor. And then just following up with them after court and letting them know how things turned out and any services that they do need. If they do need anything like housing or therapy, we can provide rental assistance, stuff like that with the grant. If they need any services like that, then I follow up with them on that. But most of them are just notifications and support during court. The court process is, as you can see, that's where almost all the numbers are. But like I said, this is only a few of the categories. I just included the really pertinent ones. So that's that. And so, yeah, that's pretty much the bulk of the services that I provide in a short few minutes. Do you guys have any questions?
Sure, I have one. You mentioned that if someone needs housing, you're able to connect them with some grants to do that. Are those grants that come via the county or the state or
It's
private
through the
organization?
VOCA grant, but so like the Kaysville representative was like, I have all these extras that we can transfer over to there. So it just depends on which grant they have or whatever. But for ours, it's just through the VOCA one.
Okay, thank you.
Ultimately, it's a federal grant administered by the states.
Thank you, Brad.
Council members, do we have any
Any
other
other questions?
questions?
Okay, well, thank you very much. Hopefully that gives you guys a
Mayor,
better
could I?
understanding.
I don't have a question. I just want to say thanks for being in that position.
You're welcome.
I've
Thank you.
had family members that have been, that haven't known where to turn in those kinds of circumstances. And you and your expertise are such a blessing to the people going through that, so thanks.
Thank you very much. That's great to hear.
Thank you. So our next item on our agenda will be by our city attorney, Brad Jepson. He'll be going through some proposed amendments to city code sections 1 through 4.
All right, thank you. Before they leave, Julianne is great, and David, stepped out with her. He does so much for this. We wouldn't be able to do this without David's help administering the grant as well. Both of them are great resources for the city. All right, so council, this was a project that very first thing Clint told me is we gotta do this. So my plan is over the next little while, when we have study sessions and opportunities to kind of go through city code. It's not my intention to make any significant policy changes. More just updating it, trying to fill out a few things. Tonight, mostly what we'll be looking at, the most substantial changes are going to be in our hearing officer section, as well as our administrative law judge section. A lot of that is just because the administrative rules have changed. We have some case law that's changed and some statutes have changed. But there is a few policy things that I'll point out for you guys. So hopefully I can get your direction on that. Is that my screen?
It's a very nice screen.
Oh. Yeah, let me duplicate screens. Okay, there we go. All right, so the first thing you guys are going to notice is there's going to be a lot more changes that I'm going to bring up. So what I want to show you guys, the way our code has been put together, every time we change it, somebody gets in and copies and pastes it, goes back through Clint all the way to Rusty. That's how we've been doing it. Now, we do have some, let me see what page I want to go to for this. So the general structure throughout the entire code is, so if you look at 2.1.101, if there's only one section, one paragraph, we don't identify it. It's just 2.1.101, and we start there on the far left side with no indents. Now, if we get to one like 2.3.05, they've gone back and forth. Some places in the code it starts with a 1, some places in the code it starts with a little a, few places it starts with a big A. For the most part, it starts with a little bit indented. So a lot of my format is just to make that consistent throughout the entire code. And then if we go to a second section, we go to number 1, number 2, number 3, in parentheses. And in the code right now, if we go to a third section, for some reason it goes back to A, B, C, D. My intention is to change that to Roman numerals 1, 2, 3 to kind of follow the state code. So if you actually go through my review draft online, you'll see a ton of comments, a ton of things that I changed. None of those are substantial changes. Most of that is formatting. Any questions about the format? I'm open to suggestions on it. I just kind of picked what is mostly used throughout the code so I can make it uniform throughout the whole thing. But as of right now, it'll be little a, 1 in parentheses, and then we'll go to Roman numerals. So you'll see a lot of changes that aren't really changes, they're just formats. Okay, so, oh, that's Julianne's.
Brad, if I
Yes.
can ask a quick question. On that previous page, there were 2 6s noted. Is that just an error, I'm assuming,
There's 2 6s,
going down the line?
probably because I edited one, that's the one with,
I think the changing of the funding, or the approved funds.
yes.
Okay.
So that's probably just because I had outlined one, but yes, we'll get that fixed for the final
Oh,
version.
okay, I didn't know if that indicated anything.
So we're looking at codes 1 through 4. These ones are pretty boring codes as far as codes are concerned. We'll get into some more fun ones later on. The first one is kind of a ticky-tacky one. This is what a lot of codes are doing. Forever, we have always used the word he throughout the entire code to mean everybody. And then for a while, we were alternating between he and she. But now we're kind of using this, instead of words used in the masculine, include that in the feminine. Words importing one gender include all genders. This is basically to eliminate any really unique defenses in the code. The code doesn't apply to me because I'm not a he or she. Any questions on this?
Can you give me an example?
Sure. Somebody who goes by pronouns they says this code doesn't apply to me because it only applies to he or she.
I'm talking about an example of the text that you will use to fix that problem with the world.
I'm not fixing that. That is the text. That's
Okay.
it, right there.
Okay.
It said words importing one gender, so he or she will include all genders that you could possibly think of.
So you're not going to create a new word in our code?
I'm not changing he's throughout the entire code. Just this one definition that used to say words used in the masculine include the feminine. Now it's going to say words importing one gender include all genders.
That's so logical. Thank you, Brad.
All right, candidate filing fee. So in our code, the question came up, probably with several of you. In our code, it says it's $25 to file for a candidate for the election. It does not specify whether or not you have to do that if you're applying for appointment to a vacant seat. Dan, Beth, I believe we made you guys pay $25? It
I
wasn't
paid it too.
illegal, but I am clarifying that for the future because it did come up several times. That this will also apply to individuals applying for an appointment to a vacant seat, not just candidates for office.
We've been calculating interest on that.
We believe it was always required. And I think this is good. We do get a lot, as you guys know, we do get a lot of applicants for that. Believe it or not, some people came in and asked if there was a fee. We said $25, and they're like, guess we'll apply. So I think that's important. We have been doing it. Any questions on that?
None.
Nope.
All right, city manager's authority. This is the one I think Councilmember Segura Barra was looking at. Essentially, right now, the code says city manager may create no liability against the city in excess of $10,000 without the sanction of city council. I want to change that to $20,000. I think we've already done that because in our procurement code, 25-102, we allow the city to go up to $20,000 approved by the department heads or designated city manager. So I think this is just something that was missed when we changed our procurement code. Any questions? Okay, disposal of real property, another simple one. The code says that we have to publish it in a locally distributed newspaper at least 14 days prior to the hearing. I'm not even sure Sophia knows how to do that. So we are, come on, guys, it's funny. Newspapers are gone. The code has changed. The code has changed to say that we have to file it as provided in a Class A notice. Are you not finding it on your?
I don't know that the last two were in our packet. They might be on your slides, but I don't know that they were in our packet.
They were not in the staff agenda or in the,
But where is it in our,
I'm looking at page 16.
okay.
Class A notices on page 17 top.
Okay, I've caught back up with you now.
And it looks like I did skip a minor one, where I just put as required by state law onto 106. I'm not sure why I didn't put that in my PowerPoint. That was just to catch us up with the new state laws that we did last week where we had to pass by resolution the salaries of those individuals. But this is, state law has changed. It no longer requires us to post it in the newspaper. It requires us to do it according to a Class A notice, which has a whole bunch of different ways in which we do that. So we're just changing this to simply align with State Code 63G-30-102. Any questions?
Doesn't look like it.
Okay, here's our first, maybe a little bit more difficult that we can have some discussion.
Page?
This will be, oh, sorry. I should have put, I skipped the ALJ and the administrative law hearing because those ordinances were completely rewritten. So they'll be our last two slides. So we're now in the procurement code, which is Title 5, page 22. So most cities have an exemption for the bidding process for professional services. These are things like hiring a defense attorney for a civil rights case, hiring a surveyor, an architect, financial advisor, meaning because they're so skill-oriented and maybe so specific, we don't always put those things out to bid. This is consistent with the state's procurement code. That doesn't mean that the state mandates that we use this procurement code, but the state employees also have a professional services clause like this in 63G 6A103. 60 where they basically define professional services the same way we have legal, engineering, architecture, surveying, auditing, accounting, financial advising, planning, appraisal, consulting. And so what we're asking here is that we add 6 to our procurement code, essentially make that an exception where we're not required to go through the normal RFP bidding process for this type of services.
So this is one where I broadly agree and understand why professional services are this way. I think it deserves just a little bit of fleshing out because I wouldn't want the public to think that we aren't good stewards of their tax dollars and price sensitive as well. So as I was reviewing this, price will be a factor, but so will the qualifications of these services, the service providers that we would be selecting. So it would become one of several factors that might be considered versus where often when we're doing a procurement for, say, power poles or something, that's probably a bad example because we have a sole source provider, but transformers where we're looking for price. Would that be a fair way to describe that?
Yeah, and it's really easy for me to see it in my world. So right now we have, I think, 3 or 4 open cases. We recently wound up a land case where we had a corner of our park that was being disputed, and we hired an attorney who specializes in land use, well-known among public entities as being great with land use. We have a civil rights case involving police officers. We've hired a lady named Heather White, who's well-known in the state to be the best defense attorney for cities with civil rights cases. And then we have a couple tort cases where we've hired personal injury cases. We always look at those hourly rates. It definitely plays into it. But what I'm looking for when I'm looking for an outside law firm to defend us on these things is I'm looking for expertise. I'm looking for reputations among other people in the city, not necessarily an FOP, or sorry, RFP. An RFP where we're saying, hey, we got this case, everybody bid on it. I don't know if Todd or maybe Tyson could talk about, the engineering side of it, but that's how it kind of works in the legal world.
Any questions, council members, or other clarifications?
I'm just thinking, and I think this describes what the mayor was talking about, I think, maybe. When we recently made the change of accountants, they went through all the analysis and experience, qualifications, all those things were really very important. Cost was not the deciding factor, but it was in there that they referenced it. And I mean, I felt quite comfortable with how they did that. And I don't know if, Mayor, that's what you're kind of suggesting, almost that both of those, but yet I do get what you're saying. There's certain things you're not going to go out to an RFP for. You know, you need that expertise. Accounting's one thing where you are going to probably go out, and then they made a decision based on qualifications, not strictly on price, or, you know, but when you're looking for select attorneys for select things, or probably engineering firms for that matter, you know, I don't know. So.
Keep in mind, the $20,000 limit still applies here. These are still contracts that we're bringing before the city, just like we did with that auditing contract.
And of course, the other controlling factor still is the budget too. So there's plenty of incentive for staff members to be mindful of cost when it comes to professional services. But if you know, if the council felt more comfortable with us including some language that cost will still be a factor in consideration, but wouldn't be the determining factor, I'm sure we could come up with something that addressed that.
And that is kind of the point I was getting at, is cost is a consideration for us as stewards of the tax dollar. There are certain services that aren't, like if we're procuring toilet paper, just all about price. They are about needing the right expert for the right thing. If we were disputing our water rights, we'd want to seek some outside legal counsel that was specialized in water law. If we're replacing a significant bridge in the city, then we may want an engineering firm that specializes in those types of things versus, you know, an engineering firm that we might seek to help us build trails. So understand that there are different criteria for services, but just wanting to make sure it's clear that we're going to consider all of those factors was what my concern was.
Yeah, that's fine with me. I can put in something that will say cost will still be a factor. That's easy enough. What about the list? Now, just for reference, the list, let's see if the internet works correctly. Pull up. So the list that I used comes from essentially the list that the state used. So here's the state's list: professional services, accounting, ALJ, architecture, construction design, engineering, financial services, information technology, the law, medicine, psychiatric, underwriting. For the most part, I mean, I know I looked at other cities, but for the most part, that's where we got this from. Are there ones in here, legal, engineering, architecture, surveying, auditing, financial advising, the council would like me to change or to remove? Or this was kind of an all-encompassing list because I knew I wouldn't be asking you guys to add things to it.
I'm trying to think of these types of things. Do we need a technology to be mentioned in there?
Like an IT services?
IT, yeah.
I did not mention an IT services in there, and that's an interesting one because IT services is pretty broad, but that's certainly something we could add.
I could imagine a scenario in that category where some of it might just be
I think that's what professional.
a very routine procurement where it is price driven, but like, see, we needed a cybersecurity expert for a data breach. That might be a specialized service.
And it's likely to increase our need for things like that in the future.
Any other questions? So add in some cost, add in IT like the state had. Anybody else, everybody comfortable with this moving forward if I bring this back in a resolution next week? Mm-hmm. All right. Any questions why this is, I mean, I've been working as though, when I've hired attorneys, I've kind of been working as though this has already been in place. I don't think it's a huge change for a lot of us, but I think it can help us out.
I have just a quick comment.
Yes.
Does consulting seem too broad? Or is that the aim?
It is very broad. It's very broad. And sorry, council member, you asked me that, and my mind was trying to think of a consulting example, and I couldn't come up with one.
So
So-
Brad,
Yes.
how I've always understand professional services, and I don't know if we're trying to define professional services or not, but they typically, certainly they require specialized training, but they often require state licensure. And I don't think most of these would fall under some of that, but adding to that list, there's a whole lot of things that have specialized knowledge that doesn't require state licensure, which are not really considered the professions. And so I think, certainly law is, engineering is, accounting is, some of those are. But I'm not sure, you'd want to go, if you're really trying to focus on the professional services, I'm not sure how much you would add to this. And are we just trying to hit the professional services, or are we trying to include a whole bunch of other things in here?
I was only trying to include professional services. Are there ones that you're not comfortable with, council member?
Well, I was just thinking about consulting and IT and how we do that. IT is listed as one that is, I don't know what licenses they get from the state, and somebody could speak to that better than I could, but.
I'm following your line of thinking on, some type of a licensure from the state. And I think that is a good potential general guide, but I can think of some, if we had a cyber attack issue and we're seeking a IT expert to help us recover data, that person might not have that.
Yeah.
But that would certainly be a technical specialized service. I'm also thinking of some of our trails consultants, where we've needed a certain set of skills and ability to work with Forest Service manuals and different things, but there may not be a particular license that some of our specialized trail building consultants have had either. So I think that's a good general rule, but I think there's probably a few that would fall outside of it, and we may have opened up a can of worms here. I'm gonna maybe ask the council. I think there's a general comfort that services are probably in a different procurement category than actual physical things that we're procuring. But perhaps our feeling is just that we want to make sure that we're not forgetting cost entirely. And so maybe there's a way to balance that. And then also wanting to make sure that it is a tight list.
I think if you add that cost element that you're talking about, it'll be fine. Because whatever's in there, it's going to be part of the equation. So I'm good.
On this topic, did that kind of capture all the sentiment we want to share with Brad so that he's able to appropriately draft for the next meeting?
It doesn't fall into the same category as these professional services, but we do have a single source service that the city authorizes for a lot of money each year, and that is our trip hazard removal program with a contractor who has a specialized patented technique that we don't get bids from anybody else to do because no one else does what they do. So it is a service, and it's a single source service, but it doesn't require the same bid process either. What exemption does that fall under? Single source exemption?
Yeah,
good and
I'm
plenty
sorry,
clause.
I believe it's in here. And I know this is something we end up doing all the time. We did it
Yeah.
we did it when we updated our power database, or our power board up at Pine View recently. I'm just not,
I don't need you to look and find and decide tonight, but if that can be included and discussed in,
if it's not in
If
there,
it's
I
not in
will
there,
certainly add a
thank you.
sole.
That would be great. Because it would be nice to have that codified as well, so that we're both providing the services that we need to provide and also abiding by our own code.
Okay,
There is a paragraph on page 22.
Okay?
It's paragraph 5. Purchases of supplies, materials, equipment, and all contracts awarded to a sole source provider are exempt from competitive bid
It's as
requirements.
easy as that. Thanks.
That's good. It was a good question, because I think we were all thinking, we think that's in there?
It was right in front of my eyes that I overlooked it. All right, any other questions on this one?
No.
All right. Okay, so a little bit less substantial, and this is really where I got out my black pen and just started deleting stuff. So essentially what we have in our code now is we've adopted a whole bunch of different building codes, and they have years next to them, and they change. The ones that we have adopted are out of date. Essentially, what I'm asking to do is for the construction code, and this is something that I've worked with our building official, as well as our public works director. Todd maybe brought in a little bit on it, but essentially what we have is we go to state code and 15A2, adoption of city codes, or state codes. It's not, oh my gosh. Let me get it back up here. Duplicate. Okay, so as you see here, this is changing on July 1st of this year, and then it's going to change on July 1st again next year. What is changing in these is simply the additions. So under the state code, right now, well, is this the one that was active? Either way, right now, we're looking at the 2021 edition of all these things, and we have the residential building code, the international building code, the plumbing code, mechanical code, electrical code, energy conservation code, all those codes, and the additions change. So what we're asking for, and this looks like in 2027 we'll be adopting, well, the state's only 3 years behind. We'll be adopting the
They're
2024
traditionally a
editions.
couple years behind on building codes of all types.
But to be fair, ours are all in the 90s, so we're a good 20 years behind. So essentially what we're proposing is rather than have a section in our code for each of these, we only refer to the state code, and we say we have adopted the state construction code, Title 15A of the Utah Code, including all codes, standards, amendments, and appendices adopted by the state of Utah. So essentially, we're removing 402, 403, 404, because they're already in there, and we're saying if the state's adopted it, it's adopted in Bountiful. Because kind of what we're required to do anyway. Any questions about that portion of it?
No, love it.
Okay, so a few codes that I am asking that we're adding. I am asking to add the National Electric Safety Code. This is something that's unique to Bountiful and other cities with their power department. This is not the National Electric Code like it goes in your house. This is what Luke and Jess and those guys use to establish how big of wires, what the clearances are of the wires, all that stuff. We're already using it. It's already required for our power department, but it hadn't been officially adopted into our city code. And another one that we're looking to add is the International Property Maintenance Code. This kind of gives us the ability to after a building is done, to go back and say, well, these are the maintenance issues that go on. This is something that Lloyd and Don have been using. It's utilized in most cities. I don't know why the state hasn't officially adopted it in the state code. It is adopted in the state administrative rules.
Brad, on that one, on the International Property Maintenance Code, I looked that up and spent a few minutes reading that. It seemed like that would give us, I don't know what the current policy is, but what I read, it felt like it gave us more teeth, more ability to do things. When I was reading through that, there's some specific properties in the city I looked at and thought, that's interesting, that we could, that's what this says, and this is what we have. Is it more strong than whatever we have, this code?
I don't know what Todd knows about it. This was done under the advice of both Don and Lloyd. I wouldn't say it gives us more teeth. I would say it gives us guidelines that we can't exceed as far as what our discretion is. I wish Lloyd was here to maybe give a little bit more explanation of it. But I don't know if I'd say it gives us more teeth other than it's the best practice. We haven't adopted by code. It's already how we practice. It hasn't been adopted by
That
code.
was probably a poor choice of words by mine, but the idea is it gives the city more, I was really asking, does it give us more ability to influence what somebody does if, you know, if a property was basically blight or whatever, does it give us more options? But that's enough.
It would give us clear guidance of how to
Guidance
do
on it.
that.
Yeah, okay.
Any other questions? The other one in here is the Uniform Administrative Code. This is more my code, and once again, we're just updating it from the 1997 to the current Utah Administrative Code. As a note, one of the issues with this is from time to time, and we actually had one of these on our city council agenda, what was it, 2 weeks ago? Where our city code said that we had to have 2 entrances for a subdivision if there were this many units, and the building code said you had to have them if there was a different number of units. You guys passed it to make them the same, but there are gonna be places in our code, Francisco's code, where our land use is gonna be more restrictive. So I did add in a paragraph in this that essentially says, yes, if our code is more restrictive, the more restrictive code will be the authority, if that makes sense to everybody. All right, ready to move on to the next one?
So,
Yes.
sorry. If we've adopted all of these international fire and building codes as the state has adopted them, but then are we truly able to have a more restrictive requirement in say, the electrical code via our zoning somehow than what the state law allows?
Yes, but electrical is kind of a weird aspect. But fire code is a really easy one to look at because we did have one before, just like we're talking about 2 exits. But yes, we can have a more restrictive code than the state has adopted. We're not required necessarily to adopt the same version the state has. It just makes it easier for us if we do use the same version the state has it, kind of as a baseline. That doesn't mean we can't exceed it and be more restrictive, but that's the baseline. We can't go anywhere below that.
Okay. So state law allows us to be more restrictive, but not less. They're setting the floor.
And it would take a pretty big research project for me in Francisco to find where any other inconsistencies are. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but I'm sure we do have some where we've decided we want to be more strict in the state code. Francisco?
Well, no, I just, as an example, not too long ago, we removed one of them, which was from the IFC, the International Fire Code, where it required 2 exit or 1 exit based on the number of units, not the length, or vice versa. So that's exactly what you're saying. And then the courts have always decided that whenever you have competing regulations, the more strict applies, right?
And we did add that into our code. Okay. Now, there are a few things in here that I want to point out because I kind of skipped over my PowerPoint. We did strike portions of our fire restrictions because they now are part of the International Wildlife Urban Interface Code. And I did have to change the name of the International Wildlife Urban Interface Code. This isn't because I did it wrong a few months ago when we adopted this. They changed the name since we adopted it from the Urban Wildlife Interface Code to the Urban Wildland to the International Wildland interface code. So you'll see a whole bunch of changes from a U to an I in that section. That is because they changed the name. And I'm not looking to really change anything in that except for C. Don informed me that in that new code, they did add the replacement or repair of roof coverings to that code. So we've already adopted that. Nothing really changes on that. Any questions? Oh, there it is. Fire hazardous roofs. This is now in the IWUI, so that's why we have it there. Okay, now we get to the two meteor. Oh, I skipped one. Building valuation, building permit valuation. So we've done building permit valuation forever based on what was called the building standards. That was supposed to be a semi-annual publication. That has gone away. It has been replaced with the valuation data that is, sorry, the other one's a bi-monthly. This is a semi-annual publication code. Todd, do you know anything, add anything to that? This is what we've been using because the building standards, the one we refer to in our code no longer exists, and it was replaced by this. Essentially, they got tired of doing it every other month and want to do it once every other year. Or sorry, twice a year. All right? Okay, before I get going to the next thing, this is confusing, and I was confused when I got to Bountiful and looked at it. We have two different definitions. We have a hearing officer and we have an administrative law judge. The hearing officer is required by state law that we have as a due process right for vested employees in the government system. An ALJ is our administrative law judge. Essentially, we use that for anybody who wants to challenge any decision Francisco makes, any decision Lloyd makes, any decision. What? People like my decisions. I've done one of those since I've been here, and it was a decision Francisco made. Francisco made the right decision. But that's what the ALJ does. The ALJ will hear challenges to something like a code interpretation. The one that we had to do with a sign. It was a non-conforming use. The statute says that they can do maintenance, but it doesn't say that they can replace the sign. So a question about what the difference between replace and maintenance will go to an ALJ. On the other hand, the employee disciplinary appeals, that's going to hear employee grievances. Now, we already have an extensive employee grievance in our personnel policy manual for Bountiful that gives them various levels of appeal, all the way up to the city manager, in which Gary makes an appeal. Those are all our administrative decisions. If the employee ultimately doesn't like Gary's decision, they have the right under state law to appeal it to an employee disciplinary officer. Now, this law has changed in my career several times. You guys probably remember something called civil service commissions, where a lot of cities had civil service commissions, and then they went to a board, and now the state law contemplates this hearing officer. So rather than go through and redline all these things, I simply kind of rewrote it to fit both the statute, which is 10.3, 1105, and 1106, as well as the modern case law. So right now, under our current employee process, the employee's disciplined, they file an appeal, a hearing officer is appointed by the city. That's an important word I want to get back to. And the big differences that I'm looking to change are, number one, under our current code, the city bears the burden of presenting sufficient evidence. And number two, the hearing officer has three choices. They can affirm the discipline, reverse the discipline, and reduce the discipline. I'm looking to get rid of the reduced discipline, as well as to put the burden onto the employee to present evidence. Now, here's what the new code would do. It would basically apply these deadlines that are codified in state law. Instead of just saying the city will select the hearing officer, I put the city attorney. The reason for this is because I'm not involved in the disciplinary appeal process, and Gary is. So rather than just say the city, which generally refers to the CEO in our code, I changed it to the city attorney. Doesn't have to be me, it could be anybody except probably Gary. I put myself there. And I changed the burden of proof to the employee. This is pretty standard across most states, which means essentially what it means is during the case, they get to go first. They get to show either why the facts supporting the case or supporting discipline was incorrect, or why the discipline was inconsistent, which is why I'm looking to get rid of the hearing officer's ability to reduce the discipline. Whenever you're trying to have an employee discipline process, what we're looking for is consistency. We're trying to make sure that because a guy isn't liked by his boss, his supervisor, or by Gary, that he doesn't get a harsher sentence than somebody who is really liked, personally, not on a work side. So when you allow the ALJ to reverse a decision, and let's just look at, police, for example. You have an officer who gets a reckless driving, Class B misdemeanor, and the chief, in my opinion, he is the best suited to say, well, how will this affect the department? How can I bring this guy back? So that guy, the chief, decides on Class B misdemeanor, reckless driving, it's bad enough. He decides to terminate. You have another officer, and he doesn't challenge it, go before the hearing officer. You have another officer who gets a DUI. He takes it before the hearing officer. Under our current code, the officer would have the ability, or the ALJ would have the ability to not affirm or reverse the discipline, but say, yeah, you did the DUI, it's really bad, but I don't think you should be fired, and put him back on, which would essentially create an inconsistent punishment based on who appeals and who doesn't. And it also gives the discretion as to how it impacts the department to the ALJ rather than to the department head. So under this new code, essentially how it would work is the employee would have basically two different things he could challenge. He could challenge the facts, and he could say, yep, what you guys are saying didn't happen. Here's my evidence that didn't happen, so no discipline should occur. Or he can challenge the punishment, and he can say, and I use he, even though we mean all genders, Councilman Higginson. He would say, yes, I did A, B, and C, but these other 3 employees I've worked with, they've done similar things, and they've only got 2 days off. So my discipline is inconsistent, and it's an abuse of discretion. So for the most part, those are the 2 main changes, other than adding in a whole bunch of little due process notes so that we know how the hearing will proceed, we know how the notices will proceed that fit in line with state law. Any questions?
I have a more technical question on page 17 of the packet. So it would be in your new 2-4-102D. So in that section, it says the city manager may adopt administrative rules governing the appeals under this chapter, including scheduling, hearing procedures, et cetera.
Sorry, which section? I'm sorry.
17.
I'll say 17.
Page 17 of the packet, of the overall packet, and then
Yes.
it's 2-4-102D. So first of all, I have a question about the may adopt versus, a shall adopt. And are we adopting these per hearing, or are they consistent for all hearings, what the timing is going to be? And
So the reason why I went broad with this, and it is a May hearing, is because we have such wide ranges of disciplinary appeals. We have disciplinary appeals where somebody's saying, yes, I did it, I just don't think it's fair. I'm going to be my only witness, and they're going to testify. Hypothetically, we could have a very large range, and I use a question like an officer-involved shooting, for example, where it's going to take 2 or 3 days. The officer involved is going to want to call some experts. They're going to want to call other officers. maybe even call the police chief. So the reason why I put that in there is for most of them, the rules here are going to apply. There are going to be some larger hearings where we're going to have a pre-hearing conference. We're going to have to go over evidence. We're going to have to argue those things beforehand. So I didn't want to apply it to every employment hearing. I only wanted to apply it to, I wanted to make it discretionary. So when we get these ones that are quite larger and quite more difficult, and honestly, in my experience, they're pretty easy to identify which ones are the simple ones and which ones aren't, mostly by the number of witnesses and how many days they anticipate taking. So that's why I put in there, for some more complicated cases, we'll ask the city manager to establish a procedure of how we're going to proceed.
So earlier in the explanation, you were seeking to make sure that we remove any ambiguity so that, you know, an employee doesn't have their discipline reduced, and so we're affirming or we're not affirming, but you're aiming for, you know, consistent treatment. And that one felt to me like we're leaving ourselves a whole lot of wiggle room and a whole lot of discretion. And as the employer, I can appreciate wanting to have all of that flexibility on our side. But that seemed just kind of like an awful lot of discretion on our side versus that we are adopting them so that everyone understands the rules that we're going to play by on these timings of scheduling and procedures and witnesses and things like that.
I can certainly break that out if the council's more comfortable with it. I looked at probably 6 or 7 different cities that have a very similar ordinance. Salt Lake City's is broken out. Everyone has a pretrial conference. Everyone has a date with certain days before your hearing where you have to submit an exhibit list, objections, very similar to litigation. If the council would be more comfortable with something more precise like that, I could easily break that out.
To me, that would provide greater comfort that it's similar, making sure that similar appeals have a similar treatment of how we're going to handle them. I'm sure the council members will chime in if they feel any different. Seeing none.
Okay.
You have
May-
4.
May I just opine on that?
Sure.
We don't have a lot of appeals for employees. Those that we do have, it's nice to have some flexibility to work through the specific arrangements, whether that's with a department head or with the individual themselves whose schedule may not accommodate specific dates or where the facts require more investigation. I guess I'm not necessarily saying that we need this language, but I would be concerned about trying to come up with a very prescriptive process that specifies numbers of days and things like that for every situation. We just simply don't have the volume of employees or the nature of issues that really requires us to be, I guess, that big city.
I can certainly appreciate that since I'm the one that's raised the concern. If the language instead of a may were a shall, it sounds like you're able to adopt the administrative rules on a per hearing basis, which means that if it's a very a deep and serious one, say one involving a civil rights issue with the police department that might have, evidence and some very serious implications versus an employee that receives a significant traffic violation might be a different category. Does that give you more comfort? I don't want to do something that is significantly tying of your hands, but it does feel like we've put all of the cards in the houses to set the rules versus ensuring that people would have an expectation of what a process might be.
I
If
think
you
I
were
can
to set
come
them
up
on a
with-
per hearing basis.
May I offer a compromise?
Yes.
What if it was something along the lines of the city manager shall adopt administrative rules within 30 days of proposed disciplinary, or the disciplinary action becoming filed or something along those lines. So there's so that something has to happen, at least a plan has to be in place within 30 days.
So we already have those in our policies and procedures manual.
Oh, okay.
We do have those processes in place, and maybe that would be helpful to see, is that
If that's the case, then I'm
the
okay with
PNP that you
it.
adopt already has a fairly comprehensive process. Brad, I think what you're suggesting is that there are the occasional situations that are outside the normal appeal where we may need to create a process that's a little more robust. Is that correct?
It is, and as a compromise, and maybe the better way to do it, is instead of having the city manager adopt rules, we put that the hearing officer shall adopt a rule. That's not, I mean, they will be, contracted with the city, but that allows the hearing officer to take a look at the case and say, do I need 3 days for this? Can I do this in a morning? Do I need to have a pre-conference? So if that would help the mayor, if I said the hearing officer shall adopt the rules, would that alleviate some of the concerns?
Yeah, that would help. I want to make sure that our employees feel like it's a fair shake. It's obviously on one of their worst days that they would be going through and seeking a process like this, and so I just want to make sure that everyone feels like they're getting a fair shake about what those processes, timelines, rules will be.
Well, I think the hearing officer should fix some of those concerns. If that works for the council, I'll make that change.
Sure.
All right, well, if we have time, I'd love to get to the last one. I don't know how many questions we're going to have over the administrative law judge. Like I said, this is the process that we use for basically everything else in our code. And it's going to be more specified later in the code. When we talk about business license revocations, the process is going to be specified. The biggest change that I'm making in this, honestly, is I'm asking that we move from 2 years to 5 years. Since I've been here, we've used the ALJ once. We hadn't used one for years before. We appointed one who his term will be expiring here shortly if we leave it at 2 years. So first of all, I'm asking it to move it from 2 years to 5 years. Is there any concern among council with that?
Can we still dismiss for cause?
What's that?
Can we still dismiss them for cause if
We
we don't like them?
we can always dismiss for cause.
As long as we can still offload them if they're bad, yes, that's okay with me. Just-
And we could appoint multiple ALJs if we got into that realm. But yes, we can still dismiss for cause. Like I said, we've used it once, maybe in the last 4 or 5 years, Francisco. And the other main change here is that once again, I am shifting the burden. And the reason why I'm shifting the burden here isn't necessarily because I want to make it easier for the city to take action. It's because most of the time, we don't have the information that's needed. We'll have a case where we're saying, here's your conditional uses. You haven't fulfilled what you promised to when you got your business license, meaning you haven't met your conditional uses. And they say, yes, we have. And we say, how? And they say, well, that's your job to prove that we haven't. So this will essentially, like I said, moving the burden basically tells you at the hearing who gets to go first. Who gets to go first and show why the city was wrong in making this decision. That's pretty much the biggest change, other than I am adopting a lot of administrative law procedures from the Utah Rules of Administrative Procedure, such as hearsay is admissible. I think hearsay was always admissible. It just wasn't specified in there. That's a question that comes up a lot. And yeah, that's pretty much everything, the biggest issues there. Any questions about this?
Just a minor, not on this, but something minor just on the other, if we're done with the major part.
I think we have
This is
agreement
really,
there.
this is
Yeah.
really fast. when you're looking at the compensation of commissions for the various commissions that we do, Power Commission, various historical, if they could be just more consistent, one of them has a rate, one doesn't have a rate, just simplify it. You know, I think it's in section 3.105 is the one the Power Commission just says it'll be set by the city council, which is great. The other one gives a fees, gets in a dollar amount, so maybe we could just be consistent, that's it.
I purposely skipped that, knowing that there would be quite a bit of well, not quite a bit of discussion, but knowing that there was discussion on it. If you guys think you can get direction on that in the next few minutes, that would be great. I don't know how complicated this is.
No.
This was more of a, maybe less of a legal change than a policy change. So I don't know if you guys have time to give me some direction on where you'd like to go with that, and I can add it into this change.
I just want to propose we just simplify it so that it's all like, it's the same as the one is the Power Commission. The Power Commission that's set by the city council doesn't give a rate, and do the same with all the other commissions.
So there aren't any changes to Title III, and this is where we have, as you've noted, a lot of our commissions. And there may be some commissions where we want to consider changing the total number of members, where we may want to consider adding some duties and powers that they have. So we've had a great experience with our America 250 committee, and my suggestion would be, while I would kind of broadly agree with you that maybe we need to make sure we're doing those stipends and per diems in a similar way, there might be some like broader changes in Title III that we want to
I'll come
consider.
back to. Okay.
Yeah,
All right, that's fine.
is that fair?
So we want to leave that for another day.
I think 3 might, be one that we want to have some maybe broader work discussions on after we have completed all of our America 250 work.
Okay. Well, thank you. I think I have enough direction to come back with an ordinance in a couple weeks to make those amendments. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we will then adjourn our work session for now. We need just a few minutes to reset for our council meeting. So we'll probably get started on that in just about 5 minutes or so. Okay, thanks.